So I've been asked this morning to speak from the subject, defending freedom and democracy in challenging and dangerous times. Defending freedom and democracy in challenging and dangerous times. I've struggled with this title over the last few days of them asking me to come to push and share with you a plot, a plan, a scheme, a form of action for defending democracy in dangerous times. And I couldn't help but recognize I have no choice, Brother Kanu, than to look at the problem through the lens of the African American experience. That lens is most instructive. So I took charts down that I keep in my home that help me better understand where I am at any given moment in human history. These are my charts. You cannot buy them on Amazon.com. I made them so that I would have an understanding of the moment in time that God has given us over time, so that I and we can be present in the same space at the same time, and most importantly, progressives, be on the same page.
All right.
It's important to be on the same page. If not, we will be on multiple data points, everybody with an opinion. But if we can't agree on history, if we can't agree on what happened yesterday, we can't agree on a single thing that's happening today.
All right. That's right.
We can't get yesterday back. We are not in tomorrow. What we can do in the present is reflect upon yesterday. And so defending freedom and democracy in dangerous and challenging times. Well, dangerous and challenging times is the constant. There's nothing new about dangerous or challenging times. From the inception of world history to the present, there have always been what? Dangerous and challenging times. There's nothing new about that. In fact, the history of human history is more of a history of unfreedom than it is a history of the idea of freedom. The idea of freedom in human history is essentially a new concept. In the ancient Egyptian civilization, slavery was prevalent. Pharaoh did not build the pyramids by himself. In ancient Greek civilization, many of the monuments, including the Parthenon and the history of the Greeks, and many of the stones that exist in Greece are not unique to the land of Greece. They've been hauled all the way to Greece, carved in Greece, erected in Greece, because somebody had to do it. A history of unfreedom. If the ancient Roman Empire were an empire of freedom, it too had a republic. If it were free, there may have been no need for Jesus of Nazareth to have been born in Judea in the first place. But the ancient Roman Empire, the idea of empire, is usually the biggest hint that unfreedom is on the way. From the Byzantine Empire all the way through the monarchs and the authoritarians of the Renaissance itself, The history of recorded human history is a history of unfreedom. From 1619 in Jamestown, Virginia, to the arrival of the Pilgrims 1 year later in 1620, America begins in a process of unfreedom. Some of you may argue, hey, Jesse Jr., but we are America now. But the Negro's critique of America that predates the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776, and before the Constitution is written on September 17th, 1787, before the Bill of Rights is added to the Constitution of the United States in 1791, the Negro, while Jefferson was talking about all men are created equal, the Negro only knew in America unfreedom. A few short weeks ago, I was watching Alex Haley's movie Roots, and sitting around one of the episodes was Louis Gossett Jr. sitting in the home, if you will, the shotgun home of a Kunta Kinte and his wife, and they were celebrating through this moment in American history around the Negro table. Lou Gossett Jr. said, they celebrating their revolution and their freedom. I's so glad they's free. In that statement, Lou Gossett Jr. was telling us that the date was July 4th, 1776. Kunta's wife looked at Lou Gossett Jr., Fiddler, and said to Fiddler, you better be careful how you talking, Fiddler. You making fun of them and their freedom. Fiddler said, I'm not making fun of them. I'm just glad they're free. Ain't something we's got to worry about. They's free. We've been fighting for they's freedom. The history of unfreedom is more characteristic of the behavior of the world than freedom. I'm supposed to be speaking from the subject matter, a defense of freedom and democracy. Freedom in the life of the Native American and the African American in the United States for women as well is a relatively new concept against the backdrop of human history. America is a new idea against the backdrop of all of the authoritarian regimes that have existed in human history. Hence, I cannot defend freedom. I cannot defend democracy. I have to fight for it.
Come on. Come on. Come on.
Defending it is for people who have enjoyed it.
Say that.
And only understand it, whose existential existence has only known freedom. But every step along the way, the Negro in America, the woman in America has always had to fight for freedom.
Yeah. That part.
We're being asked to defend it and fight for it.
Yeah.
I can defend it and fight for it because I know the alternative. America is worth saving.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a rough experiment. It's a difficult experiment. But the lens of our history is reflective. One of the most fascinating things about America, I remember when we were campaigning in multiple states for Kamala Harris just last year. Bobby, we began, I believe, in Michigan, and then we went to Ohio, and then we went to Pennsylvania, and I kept chiding the Kamala Harris campaign. We need to go to Gettysburg. They wouldn't return our phone calls. I said, Dad, we need to go to Gettysburg. We were in Harrisburg, and we were in this burg and that burg, all over Pennsylvania, but we need to go to Gettysburg. The fascinating thing about July 4th, 1776, the first 87 July 4ths of the Negro in America. Fiddler was right. The next 162 July 4ths, something different is happening every July 4th. So I'm in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, speaking at the oldest African-American church that was on the battlefield of Gettysburg on July 1st through July 3rd, 1863. More than 50,000 men had lost their lives on both sides in the battle at Gettysburg. It would be Abraham Lincoln who in November of that year, with the corpses still sweltering in that heat, come to Gettysburg and deliver the Gettysburg Address. And in that address, he intellectually picked the pockets of the mind of the American people. It is impossible today to imagine a July 4th before Gettysburg. Americans on July 4th eat barbecue and drink beer and watch ball games and play softball and play tag football and enjoy. They can't imagine the July 4th before women had the right to vote. They can't imagine the July 4ths in slavery. They can't imagine the July 4ths that included the genocide of Native Americans. All they know is after what Lincoln said about July 4th, we as a nation were becoming something new. July 4th, 1953 is different before Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954 than July 4th, 1955.
Say that again. Say it again.
Totally different.
America, a year after the Supreme Court decision striking down Jim Crow and Plessy versus Ferguson from 1896, July 4th meant something different from those of us who can now go to public schools. July 4th, 1963 meant one thing on July 4th, 1963. Martin Luther King Jr. just a month later delivering the I Have a Dream speech on August 28th, 1963. Just a month later, we walked into a new America. July 4th, 1964 and 65 and 66 were different because Dr. King said so. We're campaigning for Kamala Harris, and I said this election is about what July 4th, 2026 is going to look like. Today, Kamala Harris is the Democratic nominee for President of the United States. But we could be looking at a completely different July 4th in 2026. A new definition of the holiday and what it means to be an American. I don't know what some of you all think about this, but I don't believe there's any such thing in God's earth as an illegal human being. On July 4th, 2025, when I was campaigning in 2024, more Americans felt that way about July 4th. Now with ICE in our streets and with the National Guard coming to our communities and arresting not only undocumented workers and locking up Negro people who are citizens. The July 4th of 2024 is quite a different July 4th than July 4th, 2026.
Yes, sir.
On July 4th, 1776, there were two realities. There was a No King's Day on July 4th, 1776. This ain't the first No King's Day.
All right.
Come on.
The other thing that was going on July 4th, 1776, according to Fiddler, was we's fighting for their freedom while we ain't got none.
Take that. We ain't got none.
When Betsy Ross added the first 13 stars to the flag, she didn't live to see 11 of them decide they no longer want to be a part of it. You have to come through the Tilden-Hayes Compromise, and before that, you've got to go through the Kansas-Nebraska Act. You've got to go through the California Act, bringing one slave and one free state into the Union, adding stars to the flag, balanced around the question of racial injustice in America.
Tell the truth. Teach.
Your No King's Day ignores the triple evils that Martin Luther King Jr. told us about. Militarism, materialism, racism are factors in undermining the Union itself. I'm trying my best to line this story up for you. Because our defense of freedom and our defense of democracy does not come without a fight.
All right. That's right.
And while they're commemorating No Kings, we're fighting to hold the Union together at the same time.
Yes.
Somewhere along that path, the destiny of black people and the nation become one and the same. If you take the education system and the healthcare system and the environment and you return it to the states, just like you returned Negroes to the states, it is a guarantee of a separate and unequal system. We are either going to build a more perfect union for all Americans, or we're going to build one for nobody. So I've been spending time over the course of this effort with these farmers and with men and women who look different than us and vote different than us and think different than us. And when you pull back the red and you pull back the blue, Kennedy was right. In the final analysis, we're all mortal. We all want the same thing for our children. We all want the same quality of life for our families. We all want health care and housing, and we want safety and security in our communities. We all want want to get paid for the work we do. We all want a quality of life. We're tired of living on a side of town where we got more people than we got jobs, and all the jobs are this the way, and ain't nobody this the way even asking for jobs. We're tired. But I'm more convinced than ever. We can speak to the people, Dr. Johnson, on the most human of levels. Not shouting at each other, not jeering at each other, but actually going and spending some time and figuring out how other people live. It would be wrong if I did not come here and defend the Voting Rights Act. For the No Kings crowd, they don't like what's going on in Texas. And they reacted in California with Governor Newsom by redrawing their entire state. The governor of New York is now looking at redrawing her state, the Democrat. The Democrats in Illinois are talking about redrawing our state. But these districts were not drawn in state legislatures. Democrats. This district was drawn, and these districts were drawn in Marion, Alabama. When James Orange was trying to register young black people to vote and was arrested for what they called corrupting the youth. And a rumor went around town that night that somebody was going to be lynched in Marion, Alabama. And so the church right next door to the jail, African Americans began gathering in great numbers, because after they finished praying and singing songs, they were going to surround the jail to keep James Orange, who was registering black people to vote, from being lynched. When they exited from the church, there were 200 Alabama state police officers there. The same ones who 2 weeks later would meet John Lewis at the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And they beat the congregants as they left the church that night and began shooting at some of them. Jimmy Lee Jackson, a Korean veteran, decided to surround his mother's life with his body and took 2 bullets for his mother. He died later that night, or 2 nights later. Martin Luther King Jr., Ralph Abernathy, James Bevel, Andy Young, all came to Marion, Alabama to eulogize Jimmy Lee Jackson. At that service, James Bevel said, "We ought march from Selma to Montgomery." And 2 weeks later, the Selma to Montgomery campaign took place when John Lewis walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and those state police officers beat him half to death. Over the course of those 3 or 4 weeks, Jesse Jackson, a college student, leaves Chicago Theological Seminary and goes south and meets Martin Luther King Jr. for the first time on the Selma to Montgomery campaign. Viola Liuzzo, a white woman, helping African Americans move between Selma and Montgomery, was carrying a young African American back home after the completion of the march, and the state police officers pulled up to her along with the sheriff and shot her in her face. We get the account of the story from the African American who had blood on his body and played dead, so that he could identify the men who killed Viola Liuzzo. On the march from Selma to Montgomery, Unitarian minister Reverend James Reed was killed, I believe, on March 11th, 1965. How do I know it? It was my birthday. My dad was so overwhelmed by the moment, he almost named me Selma. But thank God for mama's better judgment. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 is not written by legislatures. It is written by James Reed, Viola Luiso, James Orange, and Jimmy Lee Jackson walking across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And Lyndon Johnson then went to Congress and said, it happened at Appomattox, it happened at Concord, and it happened just last week in Selma, the turning points of human history. And then, with the signing of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, democracy was born in America.
Come on now.
I need the fight for democracy to defend democracy.
Yes.
I need the fight for freedom to defend freedom. Abraham Lincoln said that we are not settled upon some simple definitions. For one side, liberty means to do with other people whatever we choose to do. That's their definition of liberty. On the other side is a definition of liberty that you get to do with yourself what you want to do with yourself. He said neither side agree on the definition of the word liberty. And then he quotes a biblical scripture stating the nature of the conflict. He said, I'm not going to argue after the Gettysburg campaign of July 1st to the 3rd over the question of liberty. He said, I'm not going to argue when he comes in November 19th of that year and delivers the Gettysburg Address about the unfinished business of the men who paid a price far greater than our ability to add or detract on this occasion. But we are highly resolved that they did not die in vain, he says. And then, just another month and a half later, unsettled on the word liberty, he issues an emancipation proclamation. Not a liberty proclamation, but something that would be identified as unique in human history because they don't agree on the word liberty. Their word liberty means for AI to do with your job what they want it to do. But AI doesn't need health care. AI doesn't need a clean environment. AI doesn't have to breathe. AI doesn't need a good school. AI doesn't need what we need as human beings. AI doesn't need shelter. The Constitution is written for people, not computers and robots and corporations. It's written for the behavior of people. An Emancipation Proclamation. How can we have a colorblind Constitution when at least 3 amendments to the Constitution, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, are specific to ending the condition of the Negro in America? It's never been colorblind.
No.
And you can't undo the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments no matter how hard you try.
Come on.
I'm going to close on this. We're going to need a different humanity. And that's hard. Because I'm meeting a lot of young people, and I'm meeting a lot of young blacks and a lot of young brothers out here who have given up. They don't believe no more. They don't want to hear any more speeches. They don't want to hear any more logic. They're so far beyond it now. And I have found that appealing to their basic humanity and instinct is all we got left. We have to be authentic in our representation. And I think that's what Dr. Proctor was saying in The Substance of Things Hoped For. He said on an occasion that when he was teaching at Rutgers College, he saw a young man come to class on an occasion who brought his dog with him. And before he turned to teach the class, he said the dog was large and unkempt, and he was African American. He said to the young man, "Now, I'm here to teach this course today, but has anybody else brought their dog to class other than this brother right here?" And the class said no. He raised the question, if everybody brought their dog to class, could he even be able to teach? And the class said no. So he asked the young man to leave because he wasn't following the normative values of the classroom etiquette and was trying to establish his own. Dr. Proctor said there are values and there are behaviors that abide that we share in commonality. As he, one of the only African American faculty members, was speaking to a nearly all-white class. We have to have, Jan, a value system that abides, that identifies us as human, not unhuman, and willing to listen, and willing to share, and willing to receive. Then Dr. Proctor told one of the best stories I've ever heard. He said he got on an elevator one day with a young lady who happened to be white. And when he took off his hat, the young lady said, "Dr. Proctor, don't you know that the Victorian age is over? Men don't do that no more." Dr. Proctor said, "If you will just step off the elevator with me, I'd like to share you what was on my mind. And I want it to be on your mind as I conclude." He said, "When I took off my hat, I wanted you to have an unqualified assurance that if someone got on this elevator and started beating on you, he'd have to kill me first. He said, I want you to know that if the elevator catches on fire, I'm not going to save myself first. I'm going to get you out of here before I get myself out." He said, "I wanted you to have absolute security that by being on the elevator with me, no harm would come to you." But Dr. Proctor said, now watch this, "It would have taken me a long time to say all of that. So rather than say it, I just took off my hat and I meant every word of it." The values that we seek are not spoken. They are in our behavior and the things that we do and the way in which we conduct ourselves in our fight for freedom, in our fight for democracy, in our defense of freedom and our defense of democracy for all people. Thank you and God bless you all.